Hello and welcome to the Red Leaf Designs Workshop. Today we're going to be talking about the installation of an expedition spray deck with standard drilled and riveted snaps. So when you get your spray deck, it will come in a bag like this, and inside that bag you'll find first your spray deck, which we'll use in just a moment, but you'll also have 2 battens or 4 battens if you have a tandem deck, and then more importantly for the installation, you'll also have an installation kit. And you'll have directions, so you'll have a manual that will go with this video that walks you through step-by-step how to install your spray deck. You'll refer to that manual throughout the installation. This video is a good primer, but you want to refer to this manual, especially if we have any updates or changes to the process. But in your installation kit, you'll have 3 different items. They'll all be mixed together in one bag, but you'll have your rivets, you'll have your snap studs, and you'll also have aluminum backing washers that go on the inside of the boat to ensure that the rivet has enough grip and enough purchase inside the boat. So you'll have enough to do your entire spray deck plus a number of extras for your repair kit inside your installation kit. Now the manual will explain what else you need to get together, what supplies you have to bring to the table, and I'll just run through those really quickly here. First, you'll want something to measure with. Could be a ruler, could be a tape measure. I'm using one of our fabric measuring templates. I don't actually know what this thing's called, but that's what I'm using. You'll need a rivet gun, and this part is very important. You can supply your own rivet gun. You can also rent a rivet gun from us that you then return, and we return your money to you when we get it back. But regardless, you need to make sure it has a special tip. It either needs to be a tip that's modified in the way that we explained in another video, or you need to have something like Sailrite's, I think they call it a SnapRite tip that's made just for putting snap studs onto hard surfaces. So you need to have a modified tip. A standard tip will result in a snap that's loose on the boat. So either you can modify your own tip, you can rent a gun from us, or you can buy a tip from Sailrite. Any of those will work, but you'll need a pop rivet gun. You'll need a drill. Doesn't matter if it's cordless or not, but it does need to have a 1/8 inch drill bit. Especially if you're drilling through a Kevlar boat, you want to make sure that that drill bit is sharp and fresh. So it's worth going to spend the extra $2 or $3 to buy a brand new 1/8 inch drill bit if your bit is dull and old. And then lastly, you need tape. You'll need 2 kinds of tape. We recommend 2-inch Gorilla tape and 2-inch painters or masking tape. And you'll end up putting the Gorilla tape on top of the painter's tape so that it looks like this. You can see there's Gorilla tape on this side, and the Gorilla tape is stuck onto painter's tape. So the painter's tape is what sticks to the boat, so it's easy to take off. The Gorilla tape will let you press the snap from the cover into the Gorilla tape and leave an impression so you can see exactly where you need to drill. So you'll need to make up 4 or 5 little pads like this. You'll use 2 at a time, 1 on each side of the boat. That covers what's in the kit and what you need to gather together as described in your manual. The next step is to put the cover on the boat, and we'll do that now. When we put the cover on the boat, you'll notice that on the underside of your cover we have your boat model, boat manufacturer model, and whether the section is the bow or the stern. So in this case it's the bow. This is the bow of our boat, so I will simply drop this loop over the bow of the boat and unroll the cover toward the stern. Once you're at the stern, you do the same thing. You slip this loop over the stern and you tighten those straps using the attached adjustment buckle. And our covers are sewn so that you should end up with about 3 inches of exposed deck at the end of the boat. And you can see here, this is far more than 3 inches. So I'm going to tighten this up until I've got just about 3 inches left. And then I'm going to do a quick check to make sure that my thwarts fall in the right location where the brakes and the deck are, and that my seat is in the right location in the cockpit opening. It's always better to check that before you drill holes in your boat during the installation than afterwards. In this case, the deck is on, everything appears to line up just fine, and we're ready to go ahead and begin the installation. If I wasn't 100% confident in what I did at the stern, I might actually walk back and forth between the bow and the stern with that measuring tape that we talked about earlier, just to make sure we've got 3 inches of exposure at the end of our deck. But in this case, I'm quite confident. So we are going to begin by putting our tape on the boat, marking our first 2 pieces, and drilling the holes. That's up next.
1.
Okay, so as we begin our installation, we want to take those pieces of tape that we put together. Remember, there's masking tape or painter's tape on the back and Gorilla tape on the front. It doesn't matter what color the Gorilla tape is. But we're going to put those on the hull of the boat in the area that the snaps are going to go for our first set of snaps. We're going to do one on each side. Then we're going to, just by eye, make sure that our cover is even and nicely tensioned. We don't want to pull it really tight. This is not fabric that expands or contracts with heat or moisture. The fabric will be consistently taut once it's installed. So if you stretch it really, really tight, it's going to be hard to put it on and take it off. We want it to be comfortably stretched, but not super taut. And you should be able to feel that as you're putting it on the boat. Now I'm going to push really hard. I've got these snaps on the Gorilla tape, and I'm pushing really hard on the tape and the snaps, and it's going to leave a round mark. I don't know if you probably can't see that round mark there, but I can see exactly where that snap was. What I'm going to do now is take my measuring device, whatever type that is, and I'm going to check to make sure that on this side, it looks like I am a ½ inch below the edge of the deck cap there. So the center of the circle is a ½ inch below the center of the deck cap. I'm going to check the same thing on this side, and it turns out I am actually old, which is why I have to look underneath my glasses. I'm actually about 5/8. It's about 5/8 under that deck cap. So that's a difference of 1/8 of an inch. I've got a ½ inch in one spot, 5/8 in the other spot. I'm going to split the difference and drill my holes at 7/16. Don't know if that makes sense. I'll explain it more in the manual, but as we go down both sides of the boat, we're just going to use our measuring tape to make sure that we end up with equal distance holes drilled below the gunnels on each side. We don't want the cover to slope to one side or be off center. So I'm just using this as a double check. What I'll actually do is take my Sharpie here, and I know that I want it at 9/16 is what I want. So I just marked it there. I'll mark it over here as well. There's 9/16. So both of my snaps will be in the correct place. So I'll drill right through this tape. I'm not actually going to take the tape off because then I'd lose my mark. I know this is exactly where I want to drill. So I will just drill right through the tape and into the boat. Just like that. There's one side. I'll jump over here and do this side. Now I will remove the tape, and you can see where our hole is right there. Same thing on the other side. So next, we will get our rivet gun, our rivets, and our snaps ready. It is important that we do each of these in turn. We're going to do the marking, the drilling, and the attachment of the snaps here before we go to the next one. We want to make sure that we finish each location before we move to the next one. So that's up next. So as we get ready to rivet the first snap stud onto the boat, we need to load the rivet gun. And just in case you're not familiar with how a rivet gun works, these are the rivets, and the shaft of the rivet slides into the hole that's in the rivet gun tip. We then take our snap stud and we place it over that rivet so that the back side of the snap stud is on top. That's what's going to go up against the boat, right? This backing washer does not go onto the assembly until it's inserted into the hole in the boat. We'll slide this right through the hole in the boat, and then we will put this on the back side of it before we activate the rivet gun. But for now, this is the assembly that you want. This is what's going to go on the boat.
1.
Okay, so we have our rivet gun loaded exactly as we showed you in the previous step. We're going to take that rivet, making sure that the snap stud stays on the rivet, and we're just going to push it through the hole that we drilled a few moments ago. Just like that. Now we're going to take this washer and we're going to put it on the back of the rivet inside the boat. So come on over and we'll show you that next. All right, so you can see here we have the rivet sticking through the inside of the boat. We're going to take our backing washer and we're just going to slip it over that rivet until it's flush up against the edge of the boat, just like that. Now I'm going to go ahead and activate the rivet gun by squeezing the handle a couple of times. And you'll see on the back side here, the rivet collapse against that backing washer. And that was 2 squeezes of the handle. The rivet has collapsed against that backing washer. It's tight against the boat, and the shaft was broken off by the rivet gun and can be discarded. On the other side of the boat here, when we bring the camera back around to this side, you'll see that the snap stud is secure and in the correct location. So we'll do that again for the other hole on this side of the boat. That's the hole that we drilled. So we'll take the rivet gun, which again is loaded with the rivet, and then the snap stud with the flat back side of the snap stud up. We're going to shove that into the hole we drilled in the boat. This backing washer is going to go on the inside of the boat, just the same way that you saw a moment ago. And now I'm going to squeeze the handle of the rivet gun 2 or 3 times until the rivet snaps off. And it will stop itself. It'll break the rivet head off once it's tight enough. So that is all there is to it. And we have the rivets and the snaps on both sides of our boat, and we're ready to continue. So that's what we'll do next. Okay, we are back and ready to move on. Before we go to the second set of rivets, it's very important that we put the first set of rivets, or we put the snaps onto the first set of riveted snaps that we just put onto the boat. It's critical because as we march down the boat, we don't want the cover to move around. We want the cover to stay in the position that we just drilled the holes for. So in this case, we have both of our snaps attached here. We're now going to go to the next set of snaps and simply slip our tape into the area where those snaps are going to land. Do the same thing on this side. After a while, you may find that this tape either isn't sticking well or it has so many holes in it and so many marks in it from the snaps that you need to switch to a new piece of tape. It's perfectly okay. That's why we make 4 or 5 of them for each of these installations. But we'll do the same thing we did before. We're going to tension the deck so that it's snug but not pulled super taut. We're going to just eyeball the approximate location and then push with our thumbs. You don't have to push for long. You don't have to count to 30. Just hard enough to leave a circle in the tape. In this case, that's probably the worst possible location I could have picked because it fell on one of the previous holes we drilled. So that's okay. I know exactly where we need to be. Once again, the next step is to measure here. And in this case, we are about 1 3/8 inches down. On this side, we are 1 inch and looks like about 11/16, maybe 3/4. We'll call it 3/4. So we're 1 3/4 and 1 5/8 inches. So that is a difference of, this is me doing math, danger, Will Robinson. That is a difference of about 3/8, right? 5/8. Sorry, 3/8 and 3/4 is a difference of 3/8 of an inch. So we're going to go ahead and fudge this by 3/16 of an inch. So this is going to move down by 3/16. So there we are. There's 1/16, 2/16, 3/16. On this side, we're going to go up by 3/16. So 1, 2, 3, up. And that should put us at about 1 9/16. Yep, for each hole. No idea if that made sense, but that's what you're going to do. So now it's time to drill. You can see this is the old hole, and that's not where we want to drill. We want to drill on our mark. So I'm just going to drill a hole right through my multi-$1,000 boat, and everything's perfectly okay. You can always repair a hole. I'm going to go ahead and do the other side too. But we are quite confident that we got this in the right location, and if we ever did make a mistake, it can be repaired, I promise. Peel the tape off, and And these are the next holes that we're going to use for our riveted snap installation. So this is a non-modified tip on this rivet gun. This is the kind of tip that would come with a rivet gun when you bought it. And I just want to show you what the consequence of using an unmodified rivet gun is. I've put the rivet into the gun. I've put the snap onto the rivet with the flat side of the snap that should be up against the boat on top. I'm now going to push that into the hole here, put my backing washer on, and now I'm going to squeeze the rivet gun. Now the rivet gun is pushed as tight up against this rivet as I can get it. And there it is. We've snapped off the shank. And if you zoom in close, look at this rivet. See how loose that is? Wobbles all over the place. And that's because the tip was blocking, well, the edge of this snap was up against the tip. So the tip and the rivet itself were not in contact with each other. And that leads to a loose rivet like this. We can fix this simply by using a 1/4-inch drill bit to drill this rivet out. And then we're going to redo it with the proper procedure and a modified tip so that you can see the difference. So here's the hole that our incorrectly installed rivet was in just a few minutes ago. So this is a rivet gun with the modified tip. You can see that we've ground that away. We'll put the rivet in. We'll put the snap stud on. And you can see because of that recess that we've ground into the rivet tip, the tip can actually go inside of the snap stud. We'll push that through the hole. We'll put the backing washer on. Maybe. There we go. And then we'll activate the rivet gun by squeezing it a couple of times. When you hear that pop, it has broken the shaft off the rivet. So there's the shaft that we can discard. And look at this. It doesn't wiggle. It's absolutely tight. So that's why it's so important to use either a modified rivet gun or a rivet gun that has the Sailrite, I think they call it a snap right cap on it. So you need to use one of those two tips in order to get a good solid rivet installation. So we have our second set of snaps now installed, and we've snapped the deck to those snaps, or those snap studs, and we're going to progress from one end of the boat to the other. In this case, we started at the bow, we're going to end at the stern. Doesn't matter, you could do it in the other direction too. Just don't jump from here to the stern and then work toward the middle, because when you get to the middle, you could have either slack or too much tension. So you want to go from one end to the other. So I'm just going to go ahead and continue. We won't make you watch because it's going to take about 25 or 30 minutes to do the entire boat. But we'll just work down both sides of the boat, one set of snaps at a time, snapping them to the boat once we've drilled and installed the rivets. And we'll go from bow to stern and catch up to you when we're done. Got it old. So we've just arrived in the center of the boat by the cockpit on this solo canoe spray deck. On a tandem deck, obviously the cockpits would be in the bow and the stern section. But this next tip applies to either case. When you're putting the snaps on around the cockpit, you want to make sure that you don't pull too hard. It's very easy to pull much farther than you did on the solid sections of the deck. Because obviously there's no fabric here in the middle. So what we actually want to do is pay attention to approximately the average distance below the gunnels that the snaps have gone for all of the other parts of the deck. In this case, it's running just under 1 3/4 of an inch below the gunnel. So when I stretch this, I'll stretch it comfortably. I'll do the same thing and press it into the tape. But now when I go through and I measure, I'm going to err toward being close to 1 3/4 of an inch. So that it matches the rest of the deck, and I didn't accidentally pull too much or too little in this section that has no fabric in the center. Another point that's worth mentioning here is that I've done a lot of these covers, a lot of installations, And this is a fairly narrow solo boat, so I'm actually able to reach across both sides by myself. I'd recommend, especially if you have a larger tandem, that you have a second person to help you. And you can work together, and the measuring makes sure that you'll stay centered, even though one person may pull a little harder than the other person. That measuring and that double check will keep you centered. But having a partner, the second person, makes it a lot easier. And I just finished up the last of the snaps here at the stern, and this spray deck is done. We just followed that same procedure from the bow to the stern, just wrapped this part of it up, and she's ready to paddle. So that is all there is to it. If you have any questions about maintenance or care of your spray deck, you can look at our FAQs or in your manual for that information. Happy paddling.